My name is Ishan. My job title is Global Client Evangelist. I didn't pick it, but I do like it. So that's my starting point. Why are you here? Me, not you. Why am I here? Well, as Linda has explained, Inspera provides technology to the University of London, and Linda very kindly allowed me to present in this slot. And I thought, that is usually not enough. What else do you need to know in order to understand the title that I gave the talk and what I'm about to ask you to do? Well, let's do a little potted history of me. So, I started my life as a barrister, and I'm delighted to see a lot of people from Nigeria in the room because in Nigeria they wear these ridiculous wigs too. I did this for about 10 years. I'll answer your questions. The wig is made from horsehair, it costs a fortune, it's not comfortable to wear. Done. Right. And then, after doing about 10 years of that, I became an academic. There I am, a lot thinner, and still wearing red shoes. As you see, that exists to this day. There you go, some more red shoes at the back of the room. I saw some more earlier on. I don't wear formal shoes anymore. They're uncomfortable. Why do it? So I was an academic. I taught law and I taught on the bar course. And that was my first exposure to teaching, and I really, really enjoyed it. And then in about 2017, I took a different role in learning and teaching and implemented Inspera and started to look at how digital assessment can make a difference to institutions and ultimately to students. So now I do this, more red shoes. In fact, I think they are today's red shoes being worn again at ALT. So I have this wonderful, wonderful opportunity where I think I have the greatest job in the world. I get to spend all of my time talking to academics. Earlier this week I was at Times Higher in Poland and met academics from across Europe and talked about some of the issues we're going to look at today, plus some others. So, again, why am I here? I want us to think about not the technology that we use. If you want to find out more about Inspera, you can do that. You can go online. That's not what this is about. This is about the assessments that we do. And it's about the way we assess people. Now, I say this in a room full of people who think about these things. So I'm not here to say to you, have you ever considered doing your assessments differently? Because, of course, all of you have. I'm yet to meet an academic who said, I've never thought about it, right? So it's not that at all. But I also thought I couldn't just do a presentation where we just talked about assessments, because nice as that would be on a Friday afternoon, it won't get us very far. So I wanted to pick something a little bit controversial. So, one of the things I learned when I became an academic is the use of this word provocation. Because, you see, lawyers don't use that word. They just say fairly unpleasant things to one another all the time. So we don't feel the need to preface it with provocation. But I learned that I should be more polite. Right? I also learned when I was a lawyer that they are amongst some of the most intransigent people in society. Then I became an academic, and I learned, yeah, you see, I don't need to finish that. Then I became a legal academic and thought, wow, I've doubled it up, right? So, I deliberately wanted a title that would get us to think. And I know when you saw it on the program, some of you thought, who is this idiot and why is he here? Well, I've answered that for you now. You've got that, but it's going to give you an opportunity either to rethink this question or perhaps to cement your position, but actually doing so with some evidence. That's the lawyer in me that really wants you to do that. I didn't like closed book exams. I didn't really like exams generally, but I didn't like closed book exams. Why is this important? I think, but don't know, but I think that some of our exam strategy is based around what we like and what we're good at. People who are academics tend to have performed pretty well in academia. They will therefore have done lots of closed book exams. I can tell you I hate closed book exams. Why? Because my memory is really, really poor. I actually thrived as a student when I took the bar course. Why? Because while there were 2 closed book exams where I had to spend time trying to learn how to memorize things, the vast majority of it was vocational. In fact, back when I did it, it was called the bar vocational course. So all of the assessments were entirely practical. You did advocacy, you wrote an opinion, you had a conference with a client. That's the bit I was good at. So I can tell you that my perspective comes from hating closed book exams, but I want you, when we get into the activity part, to think, does my own view on exams correlate with what I'm good at? Does my own view on assessment correlate with what I'm good at? Brings out broader questions of whether we should only be doing assessments that people like or are good at, but I wanted you to have a think about that particular point. But Ish, I need them to know things. That is the most common response that I get when I talk about closed book exams with people. I need them to know things, right? It's really, really important that they know things. And I want us to think about how much of that is true. Because much as I'd like to abolish all the closed book exams, I well know that there are some circumstances in which they actually have a justifiable reason. What I'm going to suggest to you, though, is there's fewer of those reasons than we have exams. We've got exams that are too big, where we are testing things that they don't need to know. I also want us to think about the modern world that we're in. I'm currently trying to sell my house. Lovely 3-bed terrace house in Bromley, if anyone wants to buy it. Okay, come see me later. I'm trying to sell my house, and I realized I needed to paint a wall. Now, I've never painted a wall in my life. Why? Because it's not in my skill set. I don't own a drill. Right? Anyone who knows me would tell you that that's a good thing. Okay? I don't know how to paint a wall. The world's knowledge on how to paint a wall is available to me from my phone, which I brought as a prop and then forgot where it was. There, right? I could watch 1 million YouTube videos on painting a wall, and I did. The knowledge is out there. Can I paint a wall? No, I can't. My fiancé said to me 5 minutes in, "You really have never painted a wall in your life, have you?" I said, no. I said this at the beginning. I was really honest about it. How much of that knowledge do we really need people to know from their mind? Or are we really looking for them to apply it? And if we're looking for them to apply it, why are we making them memorize it too? Again, not points that are novel. Nothing I say, bar possibly things about my shoes or my painting ability, will be, but they're all there to get you to think about what you're going to say and what you're going to do in the activity. So I want us to think about how much we really need them to know and how much of that we can actually solve or test differently by giving them access to the information. I want us to think about where the critical thinking is happening. Critical thinking is super important. It's what we need them to do. But are they really thinking critically in that closed book exam? Or did all the critical thinking come beforehand when they made their notes? And now the people performing well are the ones who can churn back out their notes best. As I'm going to say it, I know that there are exams, there are assessments out there where we really do get students to think in the moment and critically assess. But what's equally true is that there's exams and assessments out there where we are, from someone who had to write exams and write assessments, we are potentially reusing to the stage where the students can have a pretty good idea of what's going to be in there. And therefore, that critical thinking that all takes place elsewhere, are we actually critically thinking, getting them to critically think in the exam? And if we're not, are we then actually rewarding those who can remember their notes best? Which is this, what are we assessing? Are we over-assessing people's memories? There is an inevitability about something that's going to be closed book that we will have to do that, and that might be tolerable. But again, on the same point of what's in the exam that we need them to absolutely know off the top of their head, where I'm going to suggest to you that it's far less than we actually end up making them do, how tolerable is it that we get them to remember things? Can we justify it? We may get to the end of this and everyone says, you were entirely wrong-ish. We absolutely need them, and we use them all in the right place. And I hope we get some great justifications for them. But that's what I'd like us to think about. What are the alternatives? Again, I'm sure that everyone in this room has thought about these alternatives, but I want to take just a few minutes of the time that I have left to look at what those could be. I think open book exams, not just because they're not closed book exams, but because it feels to me like that is our life skill. I feel like I'm in one long open book exam. It's mainly because I spend time talking to my 8-year-old who likes to ask me lots of questions. Or indeed my 18-year-old who's now hearing what they were like at 8. Quite a lot at the moment. I like to remind my 18-year-old that they once woke me when they were 8 at 5 o'clock in the morning, for that is the time they'd wake up every single day. And they woke me by poking me and saying, "Dad, name every country in the world where Portuguese is the official language." Portugal, East Timor, Angola, Mozambique, Cape Verde, Brazil, and there's one more that I can't remember. So, that's stuck in my memory because I don't really need to know it. Open book exams do not necessarily mean a free-for-all either. This is actually an opportunity to level what people have, giving them the same material and saying, right, it's not a memory test, there it is, what can you do with this piece of material that I've given all of you? Right? Taking away that who did the best critical thinking beforehand that they can then replicate in the exam. The second point is time. So the evolution of the bar exams now means that instead of there being 2 closed book exams, there's now 2 closed book and 1 open book. There's a realization that the white book, which is the civil procedure rules of England and Wales, which is 2 volumes that run to about 7,000 pages, not the entire thing is in the on the syllabus, but you can't memorize all of that, and why would you? I mean, it's antithetical to being a lawyer. If you ever find a lawyer who says, "I'm not going to look this up, I'm going to tell you off the top of my head," run really fast, because they're not a good lawyer. But we insist on assessing people in that way. But the relationship to time is that that open book exam has been timed so that if you were to look up everything from first principles, you would never finish the exam. You do require them to have those first principles to find the bit where, is it 14 days for an acknowledgement of service? Is it 21? Why am I remembering that? I don't need to. In time I might. But right now as a student, I can find that. So we can play with the time. I can tell you that I'm sure most students would like shorter exams rather than longer than ones. So let's have a think about the time that we spend. And then there's this. I don't like closed book exams, but I do like talking. This comes as no surprise. You've heard me for 20 minutes. I quite enjoy this. This is good fun. That's why I told you I have the greatest job in the world. Get made to write things from time to time. It's sort of pain of death to have to do it. But, little plug for myself, did write a white paper at the start of this year. It's on AI and education. You can find it on our website. More excited to tell you that I'm doing a podcast, which starts at the end of the month. Phil Dawson is on episode 3. That might make you come. Somebody called Linda is on episode 1. You might know her. There you are, right? That comes out at the end of the month. I know the fear about oral exams. Actually, in a lot of cases, when I talk to people, had this discussion out in Southeast Asia and Australia last year, it sounds like a lot of work to administer. Well, it is. I've done it. I did it when we taught advocacy. When you assess advocacy, it has to be a piece of advocacy. You can't let them write it down. So, yes, you have to schedule all of those students to come in and do their bit of advocacy. There are some great benefits. You get to do your first marking as they perform. Right? I didn't stop being an academic because of marking, but it did help. Right? It used to take me a really long time to mark well and do good feedback. This actually gave me an opportunity to make myself do it in the moment. When I mark, and I carried on marking for some time after I stopped being a full-time academic, I'm like a child. I have to give myself rewards after every single thing I mark. This actually did it in a different way. It made me mark at the time. So, scary, but potentially with technology, potentially with just rethinking the way in which we shape our assessment and exam schedules, that there's ways of doing it. So, with that in mind, I have 2 questions for you. Is there a place for closed book examinations in higher education? I'm sure you're all going to say yes, that's fine. So, point number 1 the second time, because apparently I can't do bullet points. If so, what are the circumstances in which they are A, the only option, and I want you to be really specific, please, and B, a better option than other assessment instruments? And I will leave those on the screen, because as I was discussing with somebody who's on my table, who I'm now looking for, earlier this morning, it turns out that I can't remember anything after it's been said to me. So if it can stay on there for a bit, maybe that'll help you too. And with that, thank you very much for listening.